lights off. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutashante Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauram Chayane Vishesha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Sadguru Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Here in front. One more. Okay, Hare Krishna. Welcome to this evening's session. We'll discuss something about our universe, get some idea. Where are we? What is our position? So we get some clue. What are we doing here? That's another point. And where are we stationed? What is our position according to Vedic cosmology? Okay, so when we look at the night sky, of course, one thing it's here in Mumbai, it's very difficult to see any night sky due to pollution, due to too much night light. Sometimes rainy season, of course, then you get some clouds. But I guess most of you must have been somewhere out sometimes, in some village, or maybe due to some other reason, somewhere out of the city where you had a chance looking up at the sky and just seeing wonderful, wonderful sights. So I just want to hear from you who had some impression, what kind of impression that was. When you see the night sky, and you see so many amazing stars, what kind of feeling did it evoke within you? Anybody has that experience? I mean, I used to, as a kid, I used to go to different village sites or farms and this, and then it's just a clear sky, and it's all very dark. But you see so many stars, and it's just like, just kind of you lie down and you're looking up and just kind of, wow, what's going on? So if you had any such kind of experience, please share it. Think about it also. Anyone having, you can share what your feelings were. Anybody had any?
Me.
Yes, please.
So I was in Spiti in 2022, and I was in a hill station of some sort. So I was walking down the hill, and on the side of the road, I lay down, and I could see 1,000,000 stars in the sky. Like, it was endless, and it was really beautiful. That was my experience. Like, that was phenomenal. Like, I cannot describe it.
So let's say kind of awestruck. Like, this is amazing. This is wonderful.
Millions and millions of stars.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Yes. You don't have to stand up. You can just speak out. Repeat here for others.
Prabhuji, last year I went to Kashmir.
Okay.
So there, beautiful mountains, ice caps I saw there. And
Okay, forget about mountains now. We're talking about sky.
Oh, sorry. I thought nature in general.
Huh?
I thought nature in general.
No, sky. We're talking about sky. The stars, night starry sky. That's what we want. See, that's the problem when you live in Mumbai. You might not have that experience. And if you're so stuck here, you might not, you just really become heavily conditioned to a certain lifestyle. Very limited, extremely limited. Nobody has that experience. Nobody has ever, Yes. So.
4 days before there is Suraj Purnima.
Okay.
And I go far from my home because due to the light pollution I can't see too much stars from my house. So when I see the moon, it's beautiful.
Okay, I saw the moon. Okay.
Yeah. Moon is also in.
Moon knows.
Waves are coming out of the moon.
But stars, really? No one ever. I'm just trying to churn a little bit out of you. This kind of experience. Sometimes we do go for yatras. Sometimes nighttime, we sleep on the roofs. some places, in really remote places, can have that amazing experience. I mean, with different types of experience. That's why I'm asking. I mean, I had several of those, but I want to hear from you a little bit. You can share. You can try to churn, try to recollect. No? Nobody ever been in village or something? Nighttime? Huh? Yes, so?
In my village near Nasik, we used to sleep on bed and watch stars. We used to
So
see the patterns.
what was the feeling? That's what I want. What was the feeling when you have such a chance to observe the night sky? What was the feeling?
The feeling was obviously blissful, and we used to make up the patterns. There were patterns in the
Okay.
stars.
Okay, that's also there. Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
The feeling of feeling of infinity. You can feel
Feeling of infinity. Okay. So that's what is extremely unfortunate for all of us. As I said, we are so conditioned, we are so deprived of that contact with the nature, so that we are missing so many realizations, so many different types of experience, because we are so limited, we are so bound. Yes.
Feeling of heaven.
Feeling of heaven. Okay. There's a lot of space here on the side in front. Somebody used to sit there. Of course, I don't know how much you would see the slideshow. That's another problem. Okay, so one of the reasons why I asked this question is that the chairs are free here also. 2 chairs are free. Nobody sit. Of course, if I may evoke hopefully some impression that might have been there, sometimes earlier in your life, if you have seen the stars, maybe you might not remember so much, or you might not recollect the experience, but when you look at such a vast sky, at least that was my experience. I always wondered, wow, isn't there something going on there also? No? Wouldn't that be one of the questions? We are here, but there's so much up there. Maybe there must be something going on there also, no? And what is that? What is that is going on? It just kind of, and there's so many other questions like this, like, look at all these stars, and such amazing creation, and they're not always in the same position, right? No. And so what is going on? What is happening? So the idea is that when you are when you're looking at this sky, what happens? It expands your consciousness. It expands your consciousness from being self-centered to a little bit, become a little bit broad-minded and considerate about something that is beyond just your direct, experience, your direct involvement, your little, city-like box life type. It expands the consciousness. So that's why there are some people who are really fascinated, and there's so much going on. I think even here in India there is some astronomy, there's this observatory, right? There next to the, what is that, marine lines or something. There's an observatory. I remember as a kid we used to go to such observatory that they would take classes, and then we would sit in a round, kind of like IMAX kind of thing, it's kind of, sitting there, and then they show you the sky and then explain a few basic features of it and stuff like this, But there are astronomers who are really so fascinated, that maybe overly fascinated, that they spend whole life, looking what's going on up there. And they always find something different, something new, something, whatever, depending on the power of the telescope they have. Because it is fascinating. It's not that only things are happening here on our level. There are so many things happening on very different levels. But the point is, it helps us. Anything in connection with nature, it helps us expanding consciousness. It helps us think beyond our daily, thinking routine. That's the point. It helps us to consider something else. So that's what's the nature of the nature. That's the nature of the nature. It expands the consciousness. Okay, so what we're going to be touching a little bit upon today is astronomy and cosmology. Astronomy we'll see, maybe not so much in detail. We'll see if we come to till that. And definitely not today. Maybe next Sunday or something also. Cosmology basically means creation of the universe, structure of the universe, maybe maintenance, annihilation. Astronomy, it's a science of us studying astronomical bodies, their positions, their influence, auspicious, inauspicious moments, times like this. So that's astronomy and cosmology. Okay, so as I said, when we look at the sky, of course, by our own eye, we can't see all of these different. These are known as the Hubble telescope images. There's so many. Now I think they came up with some other telescope which is even more powerful and can zoom in way more than even Hubble. So there are some interesting things going on. It's like, but what it is, it's difficult to figure out. Like just like it's difficult, let's say, for an ant. If an ant would come here and try to do some studies, it would be very difficult for the ant to understand what is happening in this room. No? But it would definitely, in some ways, be amazed that there is something's going on there. Something is different than what is happening within my, hole, or different holes that I pass through every day. So amazing images. They're very colorful, and scientists just can't figure out really what it means. You can see there's so many different. It's not just dark sky that is there, and some skies. Some stars shining. There's so much more. There's so much more. So there's so many different kinds of. They call them nebulas and this and then and gases and all kinds of stuff. Of course, they can't say what it is. We just can't understand what is happening here. So that's something that we're going to touch from the Vedic perspective. What is the universe all about? What is going on there? Okay, I think this is the last one. At least it's very colorful. It's very colorful. Okay, so this is Voltaire. He's a very famous, quite famous, at least in the West, philosopher. So he said, I'm convinced that everything has come down to us from the banks of Ganga, astronomy, astrology, metempsychosis, etc. So a lot of information about it, because now what we are presenting is, first of all, one of the reasons was that Srila Prabhupada wanted devotees to have the understanding of this universe. And he wanted devotees. Now there is one big temple you might have seen down. There is some promotion going on for the temple of the Vedic Planetarium in Mayapur, West Bengal. And it's kind of like it's not really an observatory, but it is related to cosmology. It's going to depict the whole structure of the universe, and give description what is going on there. So Srila Prabhupada he said, I want a scientific presentation that will explain the natural phenomena from the Shastra. Because we have Siddhantas. Siddhantas are astronomical treatises. And we have Puranas, which also contain Siddhantas. There's so much information that is given. So devotees have done research, and I was part of one of such research. And we've come up with certain very interesting data and models. And some of these we're going to be presenting here today, and maybe next Sunday, we'll see. So that you can get some idea and insight in what it means and what it is going on within the universe, and what is universe, how it is structured, where is our position, as I said. So Srila Prabhupada he wanted to explanation of day and night, seasons, moons, eclipses, moons, phases. He wanted such kind of description, at least some basic natural phenomena. Of course, there are many more. So this is what devotees have been researching upon, and they came up with pretty interesting conclusions. And this is what is going to be presented in this enormous temple, huge temple. It's just going to be like within the dome, like a big chandelier, just like here in Juhu, we have a big in the middle, if you've noticed, big chandelier, and all of this is going to be to some extent explained. And then it's dioramas on the different floors like this. It's going to be a huge educational, astronomical presentation. So we should not, of course, there might be some objections or some misunderstandings that modern science is the only science that gives us this understanding, so that's not the case. So here what we are presenting is, you can see various other philosophers and scientists will talk about the Vedic cosmology. Vedic cosmology, Vedic astronomy, which is very, very precise still today, and it will remain as such, of course, because it's based on the real scientific methodology. So that's something just to introduce you, that you don't think that this is all some kind of, like what we usually hear, mythology, right? Mythology means like fairy stories, imagination, and stuff like that. No, it's a science. So it's a science. So here we have Voltaire. As I said, he was very, very famous in Europe, still it is. So he said, yes, this knowledge has come down from India. Then Sylvain Bailey, French astronomer, and he was very, very famous. He was very influential. So what he said, the motion of the stars calculated by the Hindus before some 4,500 years vary not a single minute from the tablets of Cassine and Mayer, which are also famous astronomers in Europe. So the Indian tables give us the same annual variation of the moon as discovered by Tycho Brahe. He was an Alexandrian. Anyway, a variation unknown to the school of Alexandria and also to the Arabs who follow the calculations of the school. The Hindu systems of astronomy are by far the oldest, and that from which the Egyptians, Greek, Romans, and even the Jews derived their knowledge from. That's amazing credit that he's giving. It's amazing credit, and he's one of the astronomers upon which modern astronomy is based upon. Laplace, we don't have to mention. So he said, nevertheless, the ancient reputation of the Indians does not permit us to doubt that they have always cultivated astronomy, and the remarkable exactness of the mean motions which they assign to the sun and the moon necessarily required an ancient observation. So Swedish Count and military general Björn Sterna, according to astronomical calculations of the Hindus, the present period of the world, Kali Yuga, commenced about 3,000 years before the birth of Christ. So okay, we'll just go to some points. He said the calculation of the Brahmins is so exactly confirmed by our own astronomical tablets that nothing but an actual observation could have given so correspondent a result. They all perfectly agree. They were different. They took from different sources in India. They see they're based on the same system, and they're all very precise. So he said they all perfectly agree in their calculations, although they receive from different persons, different times, and from places in India, remote from each other. The motion calculated by the Brahmins during the long space of more than 4,000 years, varies not a single minute from the recent tables. That means the ancient calculations were same like the modern calculations in the West. That's the point. So that more than 3,000 years BC, they've calculated. So Indian astronomy, it's not recent, and it's not mythological. So they attained such a high degree of astronomical and geometrical learning. That's a high science. Elphiston Road, no more, no? Now it's probably. Yeah? So he said, the Hindu astronomy not only establishes a high proficiency of our ancestors in this department of knowledge and exacts admiration and applause, it does something more. It proves the great antiquity of the Sanskrit literature and the high literary culture of the Hindus. Again, he mentions Bailey. See, they were all calling upon him as a great authority. The celebrated author of the history of astronomy inferred from certain astronomical tables of the Hindus not only advanced progress of the science, not only advanced progress of the science, but a date so ancient to be entirely inconsistent with the chronology of the Hebrew scriptures. Because in the West they think the world started some 5,000-6,000 years ago. That's it. But Indian cosmology is way ancient than that. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the time. So his argument was labored with the utmost diligence and was received with unbounded applause. So a lot of nice credit. John Playfair, Scottish scientist and mathematician. I entered on the study of Bailey's work not with a portion of skepticism, but the result was an entire conviction of the accuracy of the one. So he studied. So he said, okay, here are the conclusions. Observation. Okay, maybe I won't trouble you with this. Maybe if you can read. But my point is, there's a lot of credibility given to Indian astronomy, Shastric astronomy. So he presents different reasons for this, and at the end, of course, said, Europe centricism. You've heard of that expression, because people in Europe, they think that the whole world, is influenced and revolves around that Europe is the epicenter of the whole civilization. But he said it's not like that. It's not that things started from Greece, and it's more likely that information came from India and then influenced Europe. And that's actually what the fact is. Okay. Hyman Wilson, okay, very famous, Dave Cunningham. Anyway, so again, praising astronomy, so complete, accurately measured. Okay. Maeterlinck, he was a Nobel Prize winner. He said the earliest and the greatest of revelations, those of sacred books of India with a cosmology, which no European conception has ever surpassed. Nice credit. Carl Sagan, very famous astronomer. I used to be, when I was a kid in the 80s, we used to watch a Cosmos series. He made a documentary on different cultures about astronomy and cosmology. So he made one here about Indian astronomy. So he was very famous, very distinguished. So he said, okay, I'll read. Finally, the many billion-year time scale of Hindu cosmology is not the entire history of the universe, but just the day and night of Brahma. And there is the idea of an infinite cycle of births and deaths, and an infinite number of universes, each with its own gods. Anyway, so the point is, science also kind of postulates that there are many universes. It's not just one universe, but it already has been done in Vedic Shastras since millennia. And then also, it's not that, if what is mentioned is that Lord Brahma's lifespan, it's 311 trillion years, and we are in the middle of it right now. That's the duration of time, that we are dealing with. And then modern cosmology, or astronomy better to say, has such kind of idea that there has been a long, long time span that has elapsed since beginning of the creation. And then they confirm, they give credibility for that kind of idea mentioned in the Vedic scriptures. High energy physicist, okay, he talks about expanding, contracting universe, mentions Shiva's rhythmic divine play. So he said the scale of this ancient myth is indeed staggering. It has taken human mind more than 2,000 years to come up again with a similar concept. He talks about science, but such events already are described or were described in the Vedic scriptures. Okay, so here we start our presentation a little bit more focused about certain features of it, but from the practical point of view. It's not that just when we said there are some people who are astronomers and they spend time in observatories, you know, nighttime, and then they research and observe the sky and do so many things. So it's like kind of, it may seem it's some kind of a hobby, it's some kind of pastime. Sometimes, you know, somebody may have an idea or something like that. But maybe anyone can have different ideas about modern day process of observation of the sky. But in the Vedic times, it was something that was extremely practical and very important to do everyone's personal life. Let's say, how many different kinds of samskaras, let's say birth, death, marriage, are based upon calculation of auspicious and inauspicious times, or any kind of rituals, activities. Everything practically was based on knowing, is it good time, is it bad time? Because everybody knew, if you do something when it's inauspicious time, your results will be, or you won't get any results, or they will be very meager, you know. But if you commence something, you do something in an auspicious time, then your result will be very good. So people knew this. Then also in terms of agriculture, when to sow the seeds, when to harvest, when to do this, when to do that. Everything was in regards to, you know, like they have these calendars, almanacs and stuff, how they call them. You know? So it was very well known when to do what. So they were very interlinked, you know, very much connected. You know, lifestyle with, you know, what's going on with the seasons, what's going on with the weather, what can we expect, what about the auspiciousness and inauspiciousness of the certain time. So that was all very, very clear. So that's why there was also combination and connection between astronomy and architecture. That is also there. So there was a very close link between them. So we'll see here now. This is one very beautiful temple in South India, in Karnataka. Anybody been there? Maybe anyone can recognize? No? Nobody knows? But there is another temple, there are a few temples anyway, where when they build a temple, external walls represent the universe. And what is going on within the temple, that represents different levels of state of consciousness within each and every human being. So there is a connection between external influence and internal influence, or external position and internal development. And this is what has been incorporated within architecture. So it's not just, oh, I go around and I see different sculptures and I see different things, different pastimes, different stories told and this and that. No, that's not all. That's not all. There's a lot of other things that are in connection with cosmology. So when there is like, there is one place in Tamil Nadu called Sri Vaikuntham, one of the main places. There are 9 temples, but one of the major ones is built in such a way that when the sun rises on the solstice means when the day is longer than the night, or night is longer than the day, or there are equinoxes also when day and night are equal, but solstice, then the sun gradually rises exactly above, like you would see these different windows. See these different windows? And then it goes to the, and then when one window, when sun, you know, rays pass through that window, then it will shine upon the feet of the deity. And gradually, as again sun is rising, the whole deity will be illuminated on that day, once a year. So it's built in such a way. And then everybody knows, okay, now it's, okay, for whatever it is, equinox, solstice, whatever it is, everybody knows, okay, that's it. So see how the architecture would be closely intertwined with astronomy. And then we have here, anybody been here? Anybody can recognize this place? Somebody from Gujarat? Sun Temple, Modera. Same thing, sun would rise, pass through this, reflect through this pond, And then go to Mandapam, same thing. Shine over the deity. Yeah. Very interesting thing. And then in Hampi, in Karnataka, there is a very interesting phenomena that there is a little hole that it's made, and then when the sun is rising, and when you look through that hole, you actually have a ulta, how you say, vision of the Gopuram. That was also the science. They knew how that reflection, at a particular time, it's manifested. Then we have Sri Rangam. It's a very ancient temple. There are 7 different gates, 7 different walls, which represent 7 walls of Vaikuntha. So there are different features of astronomy, again, integrated within the architectural different structures. So astronomy and Vedic cosmology are inseparably entwined at Angkor Wat. Anybody knows where is Angkor Wat? Rarely the history has any culture given rise to structure so elaborately and so expansively incorporates its concept of the cosmos. Angkor Wat has encoded precise calendrical, historical, and cosmological themes into the architectural plan for the temple. As many as 18 astronomical alignments have been identified within its walls. Okay, so this is I've been there some 25 years ago. It's an amazing place. It has been built by a king whose name was Surya Varman II. It used to be a Vedic culture, and it has been built for whom? It has been built for Vishnu, and this is the main temple. Very grand temple. It is said to be the biggest temple or religious structure in the world because it's an enormous complex. It's not just this temple. There are 72 temples in quite a large area. But this is the main temple, and this temple has been built for Vishnu. Of course, nowadays they have some statue. That's not the original deity. Has 6 arms or 8 arms or something. But it's not the original deity. They offer some other bhakti and this and that, but it's not the same thing.
Indonesia, right?
No, it's in Cambodia.
Cambodia,
Indonesia is coming, it's a different thing. So the central tower represents Mount Meru. No? Mount Meru, we have heard the central axis of the universe. It's not exactly the central axis. Maybe we'll come to that when we come to our planet, trying to explain something. And then 4 supporting mountains. So you see the other 4 smaller towering sikhars. And then there are different modes which represent different, like in the universe, we have different areas, different continents, different oceans, And what is interesting also, the length corresponds, different lengths of it corresponds to different ages, like Kali Yuga, Sati Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dvapara Yuga. All the different numbers correspond to that, the length of it, how many meters it is and how many years are there. Then again, in this whole area, again, the solstice, equinox, the sun would rise and at certain places. So people would know, actually, they would be very conscious, they would be very, you wouldn't have to have a calendar practically. If you would have lived in such a place, you would have everything being obvious, what's going on with the moon, what are the moon's phases, even if you wouldn't be able to see, let's say, due to some cloudy sky or this and that, whatever, like they say, that just in this particular temple, they identify 18 different alignments that are there. And then, of course, as I said, there are 72 temples. And there are, maybe we'll have an image of this, maybe we won't. Yeah, we'll have. Okay, we'll explain it. Okay, here it comes. So this is, what is this? Anybody can guess? Yes. Yeah. So you see demigods and demons churning, but also there are different entrances, and they're like modes passing through different, there are canals around, and there on one side there are demigods, and another side there are demons also, like kind of holding Vasuki, churning. It's very nice, it's very beautiful. When you go on the road, demons are here, demigods are here, like a little fence kind of thing, and leading you into very, very grand kind of arch, like we have entering gates. So they have these entering gates with different towers and stuff. It's very beautiful. So they also, the demons are 91, demigods are 88. So that all comes to the number of days between the solstices and equinoxes. It's very interesting. Everything has some correlation with cosmology. Everything is correlated, so that's very interesting. And of course, as we said, this was Vedic civilization before. You know, they noticed, you can see now it's going to become clear, the different pastimes from Ramayana, Mahabharata, Krishna killing Kamsa, Rama comforting Sugriva. There's one almost 50-meter relief, you know, that all these different images are carved in the stone. And you have Vali's dead, Bhishma on the arrows, Bhima fighting, Krishna and Arjuna fighting. There's so many wonderful stories. Yamaraj and Buffalo, that, so many things that are very, very beautiful. So it's an amazing place. And they have some hills a little bit nearby, and the water flows. And what they did in the river, they carved different Shiva lingas in the river, you know. So it's like kind of a, and of course there is Mahavishnu first, and then it's all like Charnamrit kind of thing going down, and people were drinking this water, you know. That water will come down to the city. So it's amazing. So many things. It's a very, very impressive place. And then of course there were other temples of Lord Shiva, and then later some other temples were converted into Buddhist temples and so forth. But there were 72 temples, and that also has its own another cosmological meanings. Why is number 72 very important? Okay, so this is Angkor Wat. Now, what is interesting about it, that's another observation, that it corresponds to the Draco constellation. So why is that interesting? Because down also we see the pyramids in Egypt correspond to Orion belt. So what they concluded, as we said, like in the Vedic culture, that internal and external reflects, you know, our state or the state of the external nature or universe. So they also had a similar culture of building the temple structures or any other structures according to the position of the sky. So when they traced back, you know, what is the position of the temples, and then what is the position of the stars in the sky. So they came to the conclusion that at least more than 10,000 years ago, they were matched. So that means the original structures were based or made at minimum 10,000 years ago. So they're not recent. Temple might have been built recently, just like you have, for example, Somnath Temple. Somnath Temple has been raised by Mahmud Ghori. Was it Ghori or Ghazni? Which one was it? Anyway, both of them were young. Whatever, you know, almost 7 times. 7 times. But it's like a phoenix. You know what's phoenix? Mystical bird which rises out of ashes. So the temple also like that has been reconstructed in the same place. Reconstructed on the same place. So this 10,000 years, the sites are same. Just like any holy site, like, you know, okay, like for example, recently we went to Vrindavan, no? Mathura Krishna Janma Bhumi, or maybe Ayodhya or whatever, you know. Then later they build a mosque, this and that, but that's the site, no? So now again the temple is there, this and that. So sites are the same. Yeah. Present structures might not have to be or might not be the same, but the place is the same. So similarly with the pyramids also in Egypt, they also, that's a similar correlation. Again, when you consult or compare cosmology with the architecture like this, you can come to some very, very interesting conclusions. So this is Angkor Wat. And then that's what we have throughout the world. We have this kind of very interesting correlations between astronomy and different practical phenomena. This is Chichen Itza. This is Maya's pyramid. This is Teotihuacan. No, this is one second. How is this called? This is in Peru. I'll remember afterwards. Anyway. Okay, this is one Buddhist pagoda in Myanmar or Burma, which also represents Mount Meru with different walls and different modes. You will see that later on when we come to that. And this is Arun Wat. This is in Bangkok. It's a Buddhist temple, but it also represents Mount Meru. Of course, Buddhism has a lot of culture and cosmology that has borrowed from the Vedic scriptures. How is that? Just trying to. Okay. Anyway, and then this we have. This is in Java, Indonesia. This also similar integration of cosmology and architecture is seen in the massive Indonesian temple at Borobudur. The temple was laid out using the ancient method of Vastu Purusha Mandala. So what had happened? The first generation was the Hindu generation, and they built the first story, or the ground floor, so to say. And then later on, they somehow adopted Buddhism, and they made it a Buddhist stupa. But the original groundwork has been done by Vedic. Of course, as I said, Buddhism also carries on the similar concepts in cosmology. So it's a vast temple complex. It's pretty big, and it also has so many different kind of astronomical alliances that are built with that. Okay, so cosmology, basically, when we talk about it, it describes primary and secondary creation. There's a primary creation and there's secondary creation. Primary creation refers to manifesting all the different elements and the universe, but the structure within, that's the secondary creation. That part, it's done by Lord Brahma. He's the engineer who has been instructed how to create the universe from within. Or better, we can say he's what they call this, internal designing, or how they call it? Anybody into designing? When you design the house from within, how do you call it? Interior design. Interior design. Okay, any questions so far, what we discussed? Anybody has any questions so far? Because there's a lot. This is a big presentation. I was just touching upon the details, but at least I hope it's giving you some idea. A little bit you'll see, at least about the value of this understanding that is presented in the scriptures. Yes?
This Angkor Wat and this Borobudur temple. The Borobudur temple is actually what I have read, and I have in contact with the people who do a spiritual healing in Borobudur temple. So they say that it has been created by spiritual beings and not by humans. And it's similar kind of thing in Angkor Wat as well. So I wanted to know, the pyramids of Egypt, were they created?
And it's a great field of speculation. All kinds of things can be said. I don't want to get into it. My point was to compare that construction with the knowledge that isn't given and presented in the Vedas. That's what we are concerned here. Who was involved with it? That's an open, as I said.
So even Jagannath temple is said that is made by the demigods, right?
Not necessary. Demigods, Lord Brahma came and this and that. Okay, that's fine, but they might be involved, but not the present structure. That's my point. Not the present structure. Present structures, they can very easily be. You see, there is a mantra. Okay, when we talk about, we have a presentation of some. There are different mantras in Shilpa Shastras. You can chant that mantra and you can make an enormous stone block, very light and very soft. You can carve it, you can transport it. And then again you chant mantras, you make it back to its original position and size and hardness or whatever. So they're just mantras. People could also do these things. Nowadays, they have a mantras, they don't know how to pronounce it. They're not qualified. You can't use it. So it's not that the demigods have to create something. And this was recently anyway, it was just a few centuries back. So I don't think the demigods or any other beings had to have been involved or something. But anyway, it's beyond this presentation. Okay, so anything else? So we'll just talk quickly about creation. Creation is, when we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 10 basic subjects, and at least 4 or 5 are in relationship to the universe. Creation, recreation, like I said, Sarga, Visarga, we hear primary, secondary creation. Then geography, the structure of the universe, and so forth. It's in relationship to cosmology. So that's why we should know it. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about Prakriti. What is Prakriti? Prakriti is nature. So about nature also. So that's why this subject is the subject which will help us understand something about the universe, something about the nature, which is affecting us. And that's something that's unavoidable. Okay, so we have Sarga and Visarga. So, it's a very interesting image. Material world and spiritual world. It is said that material world is 1/4 of the sum total creation. Now what does that mean? 1/4. 1/4 of sum total creation. And it's all ever expanding. There's no limit. So then you have to present it like this. You get some idea. It's 1/4, but it's unlimited. It's 1/4. So material world is just like you see this darkened portion down. As a spider, one second, it's a little bit, creates the network of its cobweb and manifests its power of creation without being defeated by others. So also you yourself, by employment of your self-sufficient energy, create without any other self. So material world, it's manifested and it's unmanifested. It's withdrawn and it's expanded. So just like a spider. So this is how material creation is presented. So manifested. So the personality of God, the master of all living entities, existed prior to the creation as one without a second. That's for our understanding. Of course, everything is eternal and it's eternally existing. But first, there was Krishna, and then for Krishna, everything else expanded. Because we are so time-bound. In the spiritual world, there is no time. So expanded himself in various parts and portions and particles. So there are different expansions of Krishna. We won't discuss those so much in the detail. But Krishna is not limited. He has so many expansions, maybe even more expansions than that are those of the living entities. So you see there are 2 different realms, actually 3 spiritual realms that are here presented. So that's all considered Goloka. So there is Vrindavan, Mathura and Dwarka. You can see here Dwarka, Mathura, Goloka, right? So there are different forms that exist in all these different realms. So here's a little description of the spiritual world. Because if you want to understand material world, you also have to understand what's going on in the spiritual world. So a lot of the description that is given in the scriptures, like you see, you hear about Dwarka Lila, you hear about Mathura Lila, you hear about Vrindavan Lila, and you see there are different expansions of Krishna, different forms that operate in these different realms. So then you can understand when you talk also about certain form, then you understand where that Lila has taken place. Even though place doesn't have to be mentioned. So depending on the form, like in Vraja Krishna, it's Vraja Krishna. It's not Mathura Krishna, it's not Dwaraka Krishna. There's difference. Krishna has only 2 hands. He doesn't manifest 4 hands. In Mathura and Dwaraka, he may manifest 4 hands. Because it's more like a Vaikuntha mode, not in Vraja. When he kills demons, he's not Vraja Krishna, it's a Vasudeva Krishna who does this. So there are different expansions like this. And then of course there is different Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, different expansions. They all have different functions. They have influence on us. They represent consciousness, Vasudeva, mind, senses, and intelligence. So they all, that's a complex thing, how we are influenced by their potencies. And then when we zoom closer towards our material conditioning, then we have Vaikuntha, and there are different forms also of Lord Narayan, and something that we also had a little bit above, but it's not presented here, it will be coming, that it's Ayodhya and Jagannath Puri, that also comes between Vaikuntha and Dwarka. And then we have Brahma Jyoti, and then the Purusha avatars, which are there in Viraja as Mahavishnu, and then gliding down, descending into the material world, then we have Mahavishnu lying on Viraja river, expanding different universes. And then what you have here, then within our universe, then you have Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, which is manifested within each and every universe. And then you have Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, which is practically in each and every atom, and each and every living being. So Krishna is just everything. And then in the material world you have so many different avatars, Lila avatar, Guna avatars, Shaktavesha, Yuga, Manvantara avatars, so many different expansions of the Lord, just all pervading. And this is all what is going on in the material world. So many different pastimes taking place. And then of course Balaram, it's immediate expansion, it's practically no different between him and Krishna. So then he is the one who expands into Purusha avatars, Mahasankarshan, Karandakashaya, Garbhodakashaya, Kshirodakashaya, and Shesha. Shesha is holding the planetary systems. We'll come to that. So this is description of Golok Vrindavan, this material world. One thing that it's over and over being presented is that the spiritual and material world also, they're just like a lotus. Everything is kind of lotus-like, that kind of form. So in the spiritual world, everything happens different realms, like we have 3 altars, right? It's the same temple, but you have 3 altars. In the spiritual world, you have different petals. All the different pastimes eternally happen on each petal. That means certain region, certain realm. So many different pastimes take place, and there are different living entities there, and then of course you have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, you have Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, with cowherd boys, different rasas are in different parts of that Golok Vrindavan. They're eternally taking place, eternally. There's no end to this pastime. They're eternally manifested, but they're always fresh and new. And then of course there are different guardians to the entry of Golok Vrindavan, different living beings that perform different services, protection and so forth. Different Vedas are manifested. And then when we descend into other realms down, then we have Mathura, Jagannath Puri, and then Dwarka. So Jagannath Puri is like between Mathura, moved between Mathura and Dwarka. And then we descend down, we have Ayodhya, and then when you come down, then you have, of course, we talked about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna's different pastimes, and that's all described in Krishna book. And then we have Vaikuntha, it's called Haridam. So there are 7 basic realms in Vaikuntha. There's so many descriptions you can find in Padma Purana and so many different Puranas, what is going on there. Spiritual world is unlimited. It's not limited just like our material world. There's much more happening, it's much more exciting than what you may even think that material world is. So there's so many different expansions there, and so many different planets are there. Like we know the story of 4 Kumaras trying to enter giant Vijay, them being cursed. So many pastimes are there, and it's very opulent, very grand, very festive as the spiritual world of Vaikuntha. And then now here we descend down through Brahma Jyoti, and then we come to the material world, which is bordered by Viraja river or different clouds. And then we have Ksharanadakashaya Vishnu, there is of course Mahesh Dham, Mahakal Dham, or Sadashiva Loka. There is the original Sadashiva, which is non-different than Vishnu. And the glance that Mahavishnu projects, that is Shambhu or Shiva, who, when it comes in touch with Maya Devi, then it transforms to special Shiva Tattva. And then Mahavishnu, with every breath, he withdraws and expels the universes, which I said they're just like golden universes. They keep on expanding. And then what is within that universe? That's something that we're gonna maybe describe. Let's see. How we are doing so far? Are we still having some attention span here, or we'll conclude the session for today? Huh? Any questions so far about the spiritual world? Anybody wants to know anything about any detail about it? Yes?
What is Brahma Jyoti?
Brahma Jyoti is the effulgence of the Lord. There are different, displays different qualities of the Lord. It's just like sun and sun rays. It's easier to understand it, just like a sun rays. No? It's the energy. So Brahma Jyoti. So that's what it is. Okay? And it's everywhere, it's just everywhere. So that's why sometimes impersonalists or anybody else, that's why you have guards in different realms, because through Brahma Jyoti they can come anywhere. But if you're not qualified, just like we saw giant Vijay in this story for Kumar, you won't be allowed. You cannot enter. You may reach Brahma Jyoti, but you cannot enter the spiritual world. You really have to qualify. Okay? Anything else? Okay, so this is a cross section. So here we see there's 7 layers, because we said the universe it's Anda, like we know Brahmanda, Anda. So it's just like egg-like. It's not round, it's egg-like really. So there's different layers, so many different layers, and then the universe is just which are, in each of those it's 10 times bigger than the other. Just imagine that. So there are huge rounds surrounding, the universe that it's within, a small universe. So there are different earth, water, fire, air, sky, total energy, Mahatattva, and false ego. Okay, so here we have an ocean of information. So I will skip this. There are different. Mahatattva is sum total. Okay, I'll explain with the principle of different elements that are manifested. Let's say you go to a Sabji market. As we change and you buy. You go to the market and Sabji market, and you buy dal, rice, sabji, masalas, this, that. You buy all of that stuff. So that's called Prakriti. That's Prakriti. All of that, it's Prakriti. And then when you segregate this, you put it in different, sabji here, rice there, dal here. Before cooking, you put things in different places, and that's called pradhan. And then once you assemble this, you start, chop the sabjis, and then you put everything. Then you put it on the fire. You want to make a khichdi or something. That's called Mahatattva. So Mahatattva is the stage, when the Lord Vishnu, he glances upon the material energy, which contains so many different elements, which has now been segregated. They're ready for cooking, they're ready for being manifested. There's another analogy of a woman being pregnant, and so we come to that. But the point is, when these elements start manifesting like this, that's by the glance of which, that's like that fire, which injects the time factor and the living entities, which have so many different desires. And then for them, all the different regions and all the different bodies are manifested, so that they can enter and they can start fulfilling their desires, which they had from the previous creation. So that's how every creation, it starts with that. Living entities and time. So that's the cooking process. And then things start developing. You start developing. Then the secondary creation starts. So then you have all this primary, all the modes of material nature, everything, all the elements are there, but now they start becoming manifest. More obvious, more clear what is going on, and then settled and having their influence over the living beings. So that's like this. So then pradhan, that they did these different elements in dormant state, plus time, plus prakriti. So prakriti means jiva shakti, karma, and their nature, mahatattva, as that state. So there's another analogy here. It says it's like sleeping woman, that's pradhan. And then when she's agitated, that's prakriti. And then pregnant mahatattva, and then delivery, that's when universe and jivas become manifested. Okay, so we have these 23 elements, living entities, time factor, plus false ego. Then you get these different modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Then you get mind, intellect, different senses, karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, gross elements, subtle elements, universal form, and embodied living beings. That's in short. That's the crash course on how the universe was created. Okay, let's see here. So all the material creations take place from subtle to gross. This is how it works, because it starts with the living beings which are spiritual in nature. So in sky we have sound, no? Right? Even before that we have ether, but anyway. And then in air we have sound and you can touch it, right? You can feel the touch, air, no? Fire, you have sound, touch, and you can see the shape. Water, you add the taste, the quality of taste is there, and in the soil, earth, there is smell also. Okay. So different elements acquire more and more qualities like this. And then there's some discussion about ether, you know, which is also there as one of the elements given in the Vedic Shastra, and then of course in modern physics there are some ideas about it. They're not so clear what it is, but anyway, Vedas are mentioning ether as one of the elements. Einstein also, he said space without ether, it's unthinkable. So there are some statements and some concepts that recognize the ether. But it's also the David Bohm, he used the certain concepts with the ether. It's famous quantum. John Wheeler, he said, who is one of the Nobel Prize winning physicists, he said the scientists are working on the quantum mechanical versions of general relativity. We're all trying in effect to show how the fabric of space can be diverted from some kind of wave motion. Okay, so here we'll end here. A little more, just a few moments of patience. So we'll just present, these are 9 creations. That means Sarga, that's this Mahatattva which contains everything, and false ego, sense perception, knowledge and working senses, different deities, you know, and then living entities conditioned by ignorance and different qualities, attachment, hatred, pride, ignorance, false identity, 5 kinds of illusion. So that's a primary, and then you have a secondary by Lord Brahma, different living entities, trees, plants, lower species, human demigods, and so many different forms of life. This is what Lord Brahma does. He provides the bodies for all different living entities. Like we said, they entered into the universe with so many desires, and they've been granted different bodies so they can fulfill those desires. And then he created all different kinds of qualities, arts, and everything just on the subtle level. It's Lord Brahma's creation. Okay, so maybe from next Sunday we'll complete this presentation. We have part number 2, and I'll just tell you what we'll discuss. We'll discuss about this structure of the universe. We'll talk about different planetary systems. What is going on in this? I'll just go fast. What is going on in these planetary systems? We'll explain different positions. It's going to be interesting to see how is universe structured, what is happening there, and then we'll talk about annihilation, creation. We'll talk about maintenance, and that's going to be much about and practical utility of knowing something about cosmology. Okay, any questions? We have a late last question. It's already 8 o'clock, so yes.
Just like scientists also claim that universe is expanding as the time is passing by. So, like we hear from the scriptures that, like you only mentioned in the presentation, that Krishna is always expanding himself. So
That's a spiritual, not in the material. Universes are expanding in the beginning. So that concept, it's not a wrong concept, but at present there is no expansion happening. Maybe they may detect something by some symptoms of previous expansion, where the egg-like universe is expanding sort of. Now it's already fixed, and it's just going to be annihilated and withdrawn. So which state and stage of universe that they might be talking about, they themselves don't know, and then we can't say therefore what's going on.
according to them, they only know 4% of the universe. The rest of them, they call it as dark energy or dark matter.
That we will come to that. Observable, what is not observable. It's only 5% of the universe they say they can only observe, that visible eye, human eye can observe. So it's only 5%. Everything is dark matter, dark energy. It's a huge realm of speculation.
This one last quick question. Like we know that there is a time factor in the material world. That's why things are limited. We have certain limitations, but unlike spiritual world wherein things are limitless. So in that way, will the scientists be ever able to know about the spiritual world?
No, it's so deep. Just the material energy is so deep that you can practically eternally be lost. Pantastu koti chatusambramya sevyamana. The yogis, if they travel even by the speed of mind, that kind of understanding, still they cannot reach up to the lowest sphere of Krishna. So material energy is extremely complex, extremely bewildering. If you don't have a proper guidance and mercy, you will never come to absolute conclusion.
The spiritually elevated personalities are, we can say like they are beyond time. They are acting beyond time.
They're
So
acting beyond, that's why we follow Shabda Praman. Shabda Praman, which is giving us the essence, and we don't waste time with anything else. We just go straight to the essence, and from that essence we can conclude whatever else is going on.
They can also predict something that
They can predict many things that are correct, but they will never get a full picture of what is going on. That's the problem.
I'm talking about spiritualists.
Okay.
They can predict something like Srila Prabhupada gave many things which
Okay.
happened.
Yes, because everything is pretty much structured, sequenced. So therefore there's nothing, they can be Trikalagya also like Krishna. You have days of Brahma, you have yugas, they're all in sequence. Every time same things more or less happen. So there's no any mysticism or anything puzzling or unknown that wouldn't be clear to them or known to them. Yes.
Why it is important to understand these things?
We'll conclude with that next time. And one thing I already said, it's a part of life. It's a part of life. It's a part in terms of knowing auspicious times, inauspicious times, understanding our position, we'll talk about that also next time. What is our consciousness? What different realms correspond to different levels of consciousness. Because now we think we are all in all and wherever we are, and that's what the life is, but it's not. It's way greater, just like we started, it's way greater and more important than whatever our position right now is. So So expansion of consciousness, so that internal thing that it's within the temple, that it's important for expansion of the consciousness. And like we saw, we said about agriculture, we said about auspicious timings, consciousness. So these are some of the features, and also you can understand what I will present. There is one little video clip about the scriptures, which will point out about credibility of the scriptures talking about these astronomical events. Okay? Yes.
In Ramayana, Ramanji had seen Ramayana many times.
Yes.
So in our scriptures, that multiverse concept is also there.
Yes. That's why we said there's so many universes. When Arjuna and Krishna were traveling, they were going through so many different realms, different things. Multi-universes there. But they're not interfering within each other. They're all similarly structured, and they just have different set of jivas, living with it.
So in every universe, there is something different. Like
There is a story. We'll talk a little bit about dimensions, a little bit different dimensions. There's going to be a story of Brahma visiting Krishna in Dwarka. But next time we'll tell that story. So he saw it. Anyway, I won't tell you. This presentation, it's very kind of condensed presentation. There are so many things that can be discussed, but that all depends on one's interest. That's why we are presenting here now, just in certain kind of essence, and just have some glimpse and maybe think about it. And then if anybody wants any details, then we can discuss later on. Okay, we'll discuss afterwards. So we can stop here, can have prasadam. So Prabhupada ki jai. Anybody wants to discuss anything, come here.